Thank you, Dean, and it is great to be here, and I want to thank you and everyone here for coming. I can tell you I hope my speech goes a little better this morning than the one I gave in Brooklyn a few weeks ago, because at the end of the speech, a senior citizen who was in the audience came over to me and said, "Senator, I thought your speech was absolutely awful." But then someone standing next to him put his hand on my shoulder and said, "Don't worry, he just repeats what everyone else is saying." Anyway, it is good to be here. I want to thank my friend Doris Meisner for inviting me to share thoughts. Doris and I go way back in these immigration struggles and fights, and she's done a great job both in and out of government in terms of moving reform forward and moving us to a rational policy of immigration. And I want to just share with you today some thoughts on immigration reform, the prospects of achieving it in 2009, and outline the main principles that will be part of the legislation that will be introduced later this year. First, as you know, Doris was a great public servant for many years at an agency that many of us old-timers still call INS. It is no surprise to me that she continues to serve her country through her cutting-edge research and publications at the Migration Policy Institute, and her research just makes tremendous contributions. It's rare when somebody writes something that just about everybody in the immigration field says, "I must read that right away," but that's Doris Meisner. And when she invited me to speak to you, I did not know I'd be delivering my remarks before the White House's summit on immigration reform. And while I can imagine many of you would have preferred this speech occur the day after the summit rather than the day before, in the hopes that I could tell you what transpired, I can tell you that there is no better time for this speech than today. Today I want to share with you the core of what I will tell the President tomorrow during our meeting. And the very first thing I'll tell the President is something that I think will sound familiar. When the President asks me whether Congress can pass comprehensive immigration reform this Congress, I will smile and say, "Mr. President, yes, we can." I will tell him that all of the fundamental building blocks are in place to pass comprehensive reform this season, and even possibly, this session rather, and even possibly later this year. For the past several weeks, pundits, columnists, reporters have almost all been saying the prospects for comprehensive immigration reform look bleak. They say that immigration reform is an uphill battle, and that there are not enough votes in Congress for reform, and that the situation's altogether dark. But to all of these naysayers and to all the people who are so desperately looking to their government for leadership on this critically important issue, I say this: it is darkest just before the dawn, and I promise you, we've been through the darkness already, and a new day is dawning. First of all, I have no doubt that President Obama has an unyielding commitment to achieving comprehensive immigration reform, and I truly believe that his leadership will be the critical difference in getting us over the hump this time around. I also want to take this opportunity, of course, to recognize the remarkable leadership that my predecessor on the Immigration Reform Subcommittee, Senator Kennedy, provided to that subcommittee and to the nation for the last 46 years. He served with great distinction on that committee and was at the center of all of the critical immigration debates of our time. His leadership will truly be missed, and no one can fill his large shoes. Now, when Senator Kennedy relinquished his post as chairman of the Immigration Subcommittee to focus on health care, I had to ask myself whether I truly believed we could accomplish immigration reform, or whether leading this subcommittee would be tantamount to embarking on a fool's errand. At the time I made the decision to take over the Immigration Subcommittee, there were several other subcommittees I could have chosen to chair instead, any of which would have presented an opportunity to make large changes for both New York and America. So if I didn't believe we could accomplish immigration reform in this session, I would never have chosen to accept the Immigration Subcommittee post. Committees of inaction and legislative black backwaters are not the places in which I thrive. And since the day I became chairman of the Immigration Subcommittee, I've worked hard each day to achieve immediate positive results while never losing sight of the larger goal of building consensus for comprehensive reform. As an example, I do not believe that a bipartisan bill can be enacted if my colleagues on the other side of the aisle do not believe that Democrats are serious about enforcement. For this reason, I recently helped obtain a commitment from both Attorney General Holder and Secretary Napolitano to ensure that Immigration and Customs Enforcement has the necessary Title 21 authority to perform investigations and make arrests in order to assist our government's comprehensive efforts against the violent drug, weapons, and human smuggling cartels on our border. For far too long, we've had 3 separate agencies, all with different missions, each trying to stop these cartels individually. The cartels that smuggle drugs and illegal aliens have integrated their activities, and now our federal agencies will have a better integrated response to them. This alliance with Secretary Napolitano will also soon yield additional positive results, such as providing DHS with enhanced authority to seize real property used by human traffickers and to crack down on employers who knowingly hire and exploit illegal immigrants to perform cheap labor in atrocious working conditions. Other short-term reforms are also critical to laying the groundwork for comprehensive immigration reform. For instance, in conjunction with the Attorney General, we are increasing funding for the EOIR Legal Orientation Program. These funds will ensure that our immigration courts are correctly deciding as many cases as possible in the first instance. The savings created by this program will more than pay for the appropriations requested. Far fewer judicial and government resources will be expended because the courts will need to grant far fewer continuances, and meritorious claims will be readily identified by all parties and quickly adjudicated without the need for unnecessary appeals. Finally, I'm also asking appropriators to increase funding for refugee settlement. These funds will assist our most vulnerable and sympathetic immigrants to build new lives in the U.S. And many of these immigrants are Iraqi and Afghani refugees who risked their lives to assist our troops on the battlefield and now live in the United States because they're no longer safe at home. But even as we accomplish these immediate goals, I assure you we remain intensely focused on our ultimate goal, passing comprehensive immigration reform as quickly as possible. The time for reform is now. And we all know, just about everyone knows, our system is badly broken. And as Pastor Joel Hunter, one of the leading evangelical ministers in our country, eloquently told the Immigration Subcommittee last month, our broken system forces good people to break the law because we give people no option to act lawfully. I encourage all of you to listen to his moving testimony on our Judiciary Committee's website.